I will never, hopefully, know what it is like the night before I would go into battle. I've never served in the armed forces, and I don't plan on it anytime soon. My father did. Megan, who works in our office, her grandfather did, and we laid him to rest on Friday in Lincoln National Cemetery with full military honors. And of course, heavy on our heart today is that we've lost John McCain, who served in the military with great cost and served this country. I can't also imagine what it would be like to face a battle that means certain death. I would hope, though, that I would spend that last night on earth like the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment did in the Civil War, as depicted in the film Glory. Because on that night, they sang and praised God, praying for mercy and strength. There, gathered round the campfire, these black men, a mixture of ex-slaves from the South and free educated men from the North, combine as a unit at long last. They have been selected for their bravery and perseverance to lead the honorable charge on a Confederate fort on the coast of South Carolina. As a general informs their colonel, the casualties in the leading regiment may be extreme. But the young 25-year-old white colonel, who for so much of the film's story was simply in over his head, has come to a place of realization about his regiment, that they have what it takes. Perhaps it is what they have seen and experienced in America up until this point. Perhaps it is in their blood. Blood that for centuries came from a misplaced, enslaved, oppressed race of human being. But they have the strength and the faith in themselves to finally, at long last, get a chance to fight on the front lines for a cause near and dear to them, freedom. They will finally get a little piece of that glory. It'll signify a major turning point in the Civil War, a small storyline that nearly was lost to history before it was rediscovered in the 1980s with Robert Gould Shaw's letters attesting to their heroism and resilience. In their representation of the United States Army, they were a force of great change in the world, and they helped turn the tide of the war, as Abraham Lincoln would say posthumously about these men, saving this country and its ultimate values. But of course, we know, sadly, that over 150 years later, the men of the 54th, no matter how triumphant in battle or in death, have not eradicated racism. That makes this movie all the more inspiring. Glory reveals itself about halfway through as a prophetic voice in cinema. It is far ahead of its time, decades before Black Lives Matter, as it probes not just racism against African Americans, but white privilege. That is the latent racism of those who stand by and do little or nothing or not enough. In other words, nearly all of us. Consider this. The story is seen through the point of view of the white abolitionists in New England, who believe they are doing the right thing by creating a black regiment, and indeed it is commendable. But are they really ready to confront their white privilege as they see the race they seek to protect in uniform? Apparently not, as the 54th Regiment in the movie is subjected to the real-world realities of whipping as a punishment for deserting and other indecencies such as having to beg for socks and shoes. Colonel Shaw and his lieutenants are confronted with a new reality that the North is nowhere near close to solving racism simply because African Americans are in uniform. So the question remains, for this sermon series based on movies, where is God in the film? Well, let me posit this. I think there is a Christ figure in this movie. Consider Trip, who was played so brilliantly by Denzel Washington. So brilliantly, it won him his first Oscar and put him on the map. Searing with ferocity, a kind of a bully amongst his peers, Trip is the former runaway slave turned reluctant soldier, and he endures torture at the hands of his white officers, achingly shown in a sequence where he is whipped and where the camera wisely stays on Denzel Washington's face as he reacts to not just the physical torture, but the searing pain that it's as if he is still in chains in the Deep South, still oppressed and beaten. Nothing's changed. Trip is the one who becomes the rabble-rouser, inspiring his comrades and his officers to refuse their insulting low wages. Trip is also the one who tells his commanding officer, his white leader, played by Matthew Broderick, that he won't carry the flag in the battle, something considered a great honor. In this revealing moment, Trip, when asked why not try to win the war, says, nobody's going to win. You, referring to the white officer, you will go back to your home. But what about us? What do we get? This might be kneeling at the national anthem before it became the hot button issue of the moment. And in this scene, Trip becomes the heart and soul of the film. But Trip reveals a tenderheartedness deep down that he has tried to suppress. When the soldiers spend that last night on earth together singing songs to the Lord. And it's there we find our real connection to the lessons today. As the men of the 54th prepare to put on their literal armor for what is sure to be a suicidal battle the next day on the sands of a South Carolina beach, they are also putting on the armor of light, as the letter to the Ephesians calls it. Be strong in the Lord, writes Paul, and in the strength of his power, put on the whole armor of God. This is a first century defense of the early Christian faith that would inspire countless artists and hymn composers. The flogged and humiliated Christ is actually our King. And so we put on the metaphorical armor, this ancient letter says, not just to do battle with evil armies. And you can quickly see how this can be misinterpreted by those who wish to push for more war, more fighting in the physical sense. For our struggle, Paul says, is not against enemies of blood and flesh, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers of this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. This is a clarion call to do just what the 54th Regiment in the Civil War was really assembled to do. Not just to fight a war of cannons and rifles and forts, although that is the catalyst, but to fight the real war in our hearts, to overcome oppression and to restore order to the cosmos, to bring back creation to the Garden of Eden where there is no black or white or any other color, but unity through God. On that last night on earth, deep in prayer and praise, the regiment gives thanks to God for the glory to represent the United States for this great cause. But they reveal their fears and their laments as well. Ultimately, they know God is on their side and will be with them, for they, like any oppressed peoples, know far too well that the good news of Jesus Christ is a gospel for the oppressed. Jesus, who was flogged and humiliated and spit upon and crucified, knows and shares their struggles. Therein lies the glory. As one soldier says, I may know that you, blessed Jesus, are with me, and I have no fear. As Major Rawlins, played by Morgan Freeman, preaches aloud to his friends and fellow soldiers, He says, if tomorrow is our great getting up morning, Heavenly Father, we want you to know and let our folks know that we went down standing up. We died fighting for freedom. The 54th Regiment of the Civil War did indeed have God with them on that fateful day on the beach at Fort Wagner, and we give thanks for their sacrifice and all those who have sacrificed so much, who put on the armor of light to fight troubled hearts in any realm, where we may too find the heavenly glory of God.